All right, we are live. It is, what is it, July 2nd? Holy
Oh,
cow. July 2nd. It's appropriate. It kind of goes with Carrie's theme. Carrie Stevens is our guest speaker, and she is currently two-star diamond qualifying. What week are you in?
I have 24 hours to go. That's why I was just checking my coach's office because I've checked it about 87 times. I'm like, no surprises here on the last.
oh my God.
So
I couldn't
Early
remember
congrats.
where
Holy.
you stood at it. So okay, cool. Oh my gosh, will we be rooting you on? That's so exciting. Oh my God, I just got like really nervous.
don't do that.
I'm not doing my hands. But Carrie you've been in the business a little over a year now, right? Because you started last April. Yeah, because I remember because she was a part of the push to Superstar Diamond that you guys know that Brittany and I were a part of with Ashley. So we all kind of connected that way. She is a mom of two. She is married. We were just talking about that. To the love of her life, for sure. And she is a full-time teacher. So during the summer, she is off. So she's going to basically kind of share a little bit about how she does this business, because to me, you're working full-time regardless. No matter if you're off in the summer, you still have stuff going on. But she did just get back from vacation, so she's going to share some things about how she's kind of, gotten herself back in the groove, coming back from vacation, and just, some other little tidbits. So Carrie, without further ado, sis.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. This is so exciting. It's so sweet. And wait, all of your faces just disappeared. I want to see you. Okay. I am really honored to be here. You guys are in amazing hands. Your coaches are like two of my most favorite people ever. And it's crazy. And that's what this business does, because we've only actually been physically together for like a handful of days, but the friendships and the support and the community that comes with this business is just amazing. So, anyways, I just thought I would start kind of by giving you a little bit of my backstory and how I got into coaching, just so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. And then I'll tell you a little bit about my beginning to coach story. It was a little crazy, everything that went down, but kind of just walk you through that, and then what I've learned through that process, that hopefully you can have some good takeaways that can help you in your business. So this is really informal, so feel free to interrupt me, ask questions. You can post in the chat, you can do whatever. And I just want to be able to be here and just talk to you guys and be as helpful as possible. So everyone that follows me on social media will know this, but I'm assuming that this might be new information for you guys, that a few years ago, I went through the most dark, difficult time of my life. I went through a divorce after being married for 10 years. I was just over 30 years old, 2 kids, and it was an incredibly hard time for me. It was really painful. I am like a recovering people pleaser. I don't know if there's anyone else that's like that. But I had been going through a marriage that was really unhealthy, really painful marriage, and no one around me knew that. No one, not my family, not my closest friends, because we played the game of everything was being pretty picture perfect, put together, and we went about our life like that. So when I finally reached my breaking point and I went to my family and I went to my friends and shared what was actually going on, they were incredibly shocked. They had obviously seen little bits and pieces of problems and things going on here and there, but I share that with you guys because if you would have looked at my social media through my 10 years of marriage, which was basically like, I'm old, so that was like when Facebook started. It was a highlight reel. I would share on social media, like all the like family photos and like vacations on the beach, and like all the kids, you know, the kids like matched in like these little picture perfect outfits. And that was what my social media looked like. And so it was, I guess, like almost 3 years ago now that my now husband entered my life. And it was at that point, you know, I had been in such a dark place, and he like lifted this cloud for me. He allowed me to see that happiness was possible again. And I just really like was amazed to feel like that. We started, like, one of the things that we enjoy doing together most is we are foodies. We love eating like really nice meals and good food. And so we started eating and going out and eating and drinking all of the things. And at that point, I didn't really care because I was just so happy to be happy again that I just, you know, we enjoyed it. We had a great time. We went out with friends and all of that. I can actually remember one night that we were sitting, it was just a couple weeks into dating, and he had said, he's like, I'm hungry. I'm like, okay, like go get a snack. And he's like, no, I think I'm going to order a pizza. He's like, do you want some? And I'm like, no, it's like 9:30 at night. I would never eat a pizza at 9:30 at night. Like, that's crazy. Like, what are you thinking? And he's like, okay, fine. Well, I'm just going to order a pizza. And I'm like, okay. And so sure enough, the pizza comes, and as you can guess, I'm sitting there at 10 or 10:30 at night, just like eating pizza. And basically the point of me sharing that is because my habits, I felt like I had relatively healthy habits leading up to that point. But in my happiness, I started developing these not so healthy habits with food. And it got to the point where I started to feel out of control, like after months and months, and actually like over a year of eating and drinking like this. And so that was the point when I knew I needed to do something. We were talking about a destination wedding, and I wanted to get to a place where I felt confident again in my own skin. And so I joined the gym. I mean, you guys probably know this and can relate to it, that I tried all the things. I tried, and I would be all gung-ho about it for a period of time, and then I'd give up. I'd stop and I'd quit. And then I would try to do an extreme fad diet to try and get results really quickly. And I might get results, and then I couldn't maintain it. So I would drop off and the weight would come right back. And all of this, like starting and stopping and beginning and quitting and all of that, it put me in such a negative headspace. I had no, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I was getting an emergency weather alert on my phone, and I'm like, is there a tornado? It was just a flood. Okay. Floods are fine. We're good. Bring the water. It's okay. But it just brought me in such a negative headspace, and I felt really, really stuck. And it was about this time that I started following my coach on social media, who's Ashley Molstead, and all of mine and Kayla's and Brittany's upline. And I would imagine you guys probably all follow her as well. And so you know how real and authentic she is on social media. And it was about this time that I started following her that she had just had her baby. And she shared so openly, like her postpartum body. And instead of being critical of it, she shared like all of the self-love that she had for herself and her amazement over like the things that her body had done. And it was just really mind-blowing for me. I was really, really drawn to the authentic, real person that she was on social media. And she, of course, was sharing about these workouts that she was doing at home, and she was sharing about personal development. And I just was really drawn to her lifestyle. And so that was the point when, with zero confidence in myself, I signed up for 80 Day Obsession. Has any of you done 80 Day Obsession? 80 Day. Britt and Kayla, you guys have done that. You guys did that, I'm sure. And so I showed up for day one, and then I showed up for day two. And that program, you guys, it changed everything for me. It brought back my belief. It brought back my confidence. It allowed me to see that I can do things that are hard, that, I know that's her like line, like you can do hard things, but like I started to just notice that I felt like a completely different person. And of course I was getting the physical results, but it was more what was going on the inside that was amazing. And so I reached out last year in February to Ashley saying I wanted to coach. And she was like, great, that's awesome. This is how you sign up. And she sent me the link, and I sat on the link. It stayed in my inbox for all of February and all of March and all of April, because I was so incredibly scared. I had all of those fears that you have at the beginning of coaching. I had fears of people judging me. I had a fear of failure. I really worried a lot. Like I said, a people pleaser. I worried so much about what other people would think about putting myself out there. But I was very drawn to this lifestyle that she led, and this freedom of time and the freedom of money that she had. And I could see that she was truly like happy, on the inside, and that this lifestyle had brought her to that point. So I had this like aha moment at the end of April of last year. And it was with this idea of a worst case scenario. And you may have heard Ashley talk about this before, but in my mind, my worst case scenario with coaching was that I wouldn't be successful, or that someone would judge me, or that I wouldn't have enough time, I wouldn't be good at it, all of those things. And so that was what was holding me back, was this worst case scenario that I had in my mind. But I had the light bulb moment that actually is not the worst case scenario at all. That the worst case scenario would be, what if I could be incredibly successful in this business? What if I could change my life, change my family's life, and give us a life that we could only dream about? But I don't go for it because I'm scared. And that fear would cause me to miss out on the life that I could have. And that is like really the worst case scenario. And I think so often, this is a business of putting ourselves out there, of doing the scary things. And Kayla, you're the perfect example of that. Like with going to do this full time now, like that is the scary thing. And so often I think we look at fear as this negative emotion, like something that we want to avoid. But fear is not a bad thing. Fear simply just means that you're doing something that you haven't done before, that you're getting outside of your comfort zone. And we know that if we want something different than what we have right now, that we have to get out of our comfort zone. And so that has kind of been my motto through my business, is if something scares me, that I'm going to push through and I'm going to do it, because that is like truly where the magic happens. So I'd encourage you to think about, like right now, wherever you are in your business, like what is the scary thing for you? What is the thing, whether it's like, sending a message to someone on Facebook that you went to college with, or, reaching out to like a family member, or posting about something vulnerable to you, like whatever the scary thing is, like that's not something to be avoided. That is just showing you an opportunity for amazing growth that you have right in front of you. So when I decided to finally complete that freaking link that had been sitting there in my email for months, I decided if I was doing this, I was going all in. And so right from the start, and go figure this, the day that I finally complete that link was the day that my coach was leaving for the Success Club trip. And she was going to Mexico for an entire week. So she was gone, unplugged in Mexico. So basically, I was left to figure out what the heck I was doing all on my own, because I didn't know anyone else in the business yet. I was part of her team page, and I had, you know, the Beachbody coach's office. And so, you know, I decided if I'm doing this, not going to wait to rely on someone else. I'm going to figure it out. And one of the biggest blessings of this company is that everything that anyone wants to know about coaching, it is out there for us. Like, you just have to find it. Like, we have so many resources between the coach's office, and I went through all of those training videos about 50 times, YouTube, you know, the champions page, all of those things. And we are so fortunate because we are all part of the number one team. So we have the people who definitely know what they are doing, like guiding the way for us. So, you know, it's just a matter of using those resources that are there. So when I wanted to figure out how on earth do I like send someone a link like Ashley sent to me, I just went on YouTube and figured out how to send a share a cart, and I went through, and it's all right there for you. You know, we just have to be willing to put in the work and the effort to figure that out. And so when Ashley came home from the Success Club trip, you know, I had never actually spoken to her. I can remember I was sitting on the couch and I got a text message, and it said, "Hey, this is Ashley Molstead. I'm your coach. Who the heck are you? Because you have signed up a shit ton of people this week." And she's like, "I think we need to schedule a call and talk about what you're doing and what's going on." And so I got on a call with her, and she basically explained to me how you hit Emerald. She's like, "You're going to sign a spouse." Or at that time, he was my fiance. We weren't married yet. She's like, "You want to have a controlled business center. You want to do this. You did, da. And what she told me to do, I did, because I really believe in this business that success leaves clues, and that I want to be coachable. If someone's successful and they're telling me to do X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I share this with my own coaches too, because, you know, the information that Kayla and Brittany are sharing with you guys, the information that Ashley shares with all of us, like, it's to help us be successful and to help us get there as quickly as possible. So, you know, if she told me to jump, I jumped, and that was what I did. So she told me to sign a controlled business center. I got off the phone with her and I signed the controlled business center, and I went Emerald. And then I just kind of continued with what I was doing for, you know, a week or two. And I get another text from Ashley. And she had said that our team is shooting for a really big goal. And I really think you could be a part of it. And she's like, "I'm wondering if you would want to push for Diamond." And before I could even have a thought process, I responded, "Yes, I'm in." And then, you guys, I was sitting at work, first grade teacher, "Hold on, kids, I'll be right there." And I went on my computer and I Googled, what is a Diamond Beachbody coach? Like, I agreed that I was going to do it because I knew that it was the next thing. And if she was telling me that this was what needed to come next in my business, then, you know, I was going to make that happen. And so I Googled what a Diamond Beachbody coach was. I saw the little diagram and I was like, okay, like, let's do this. The kicker was that she said, she's like, "Well, so you have until next Thursday. So it's like 8 days." And so I was like, "Oh crap, what did I just agree to?" And so, but you guys, she told me I was going to do this. She put me in a text strand with these girls right here. And I saw that everyone else was pushing and doing all the things to make it happen. And so, you know what? I didn't care if I was going to be signing up my dad, my grandpa. Like, I didn't care who I was signing up. Like, I was going to be making this happen. And sure enough, that day I woke up as Diamond. And I'm telling you guys this because it's not anything to do with me. It's not anything like special about me that made this happen, but this should give you hope that if I am able to do this when I was completely clueless, not understanding anything about anything. Like I knew nothing about what it meant to be a coach. I didn't know what I was signing people up for. I didn't know anything, like how to run a challenge group, like any of that stuff. But all I knew was that I was excited about this opportunity, and people picked up on my excitement. So they were excited too. And they were like, well, whatever this is that you're so pumped up about, I want to be a part of that too. And the resources are out there for us. If you're coachable and if you're willing to like do the things that are asked of you, the business is not hard. It's not complicated. It takes hard work, but it's not hard, if that makes sense. So after I hit Brittany, after everything, so now everything's all like rainbows and unicorns, right? And everything's going so well. And I was so excited. I felt like I was hitting the ground running. This was the last month of school. I was super excited that it was going to be summer break. I could really devote time and effort to this business. I also was having a destination wedding in Jamaica, like a week after school got out. So I was a tad bit stressed at this time, if you can imagine. I hadn't thought about sharing this with you guys until right now, but it was at this time that I was starting to be more open on social media. And it was very interesting to me because I was pumped and excited about this business. And something that was very surprising and very difficult for me was that a lot of the people around me that I thought would be excited for me too were not excited for me too. And when I look back, I can see that my circle of people that I had prior to coaching, I was in a negative place. And my circle of friends was very comfortable with me being in that negative place. I had gone through a divorce. I had had a really like difficult year of teaching, and I was in a very, so true. I was in a very like just difficult place. And I feel like misery loves company, you know, like, and the crabs in a bucket is so true, Brittany, that when some people around me started to see my happiness and they started to see me like shifting towards that, they were trying to pull me back down. They were trying to criticize what I was doing. And I've watched some of my own coaches go through this too. And it's so hard when you're going through it. And especially when it's people that like you really care about and that you really feel like you really thought they cared about you. And it's hard to receive the criticism, and it's hard to receive judgment, especially when it's unfair. But what I had to come to realize, and it wasn't easy, like it's easy for me to say this, but it was definitely like a process, is that anyone who's criticizing me for wanting to live my best life and be positive and help other women do the same, that those are not my people, you know, and those are people that I kind of have to let go of. And so I was going through at this time with one of my closest friends at that point. I was going through like kind of a difficult situation with her. It was the end of the school year, which is always crazy. I was doing all the last minute odds and ends for our destination wedding. And on a week before the last week of school, my own kids go to the school where I teach. And so we had driven to school. We went in. It was about 10 minutes before the bell was going to ring and the students were going to come in. I sat down at my computer, and all of a sudden, the left side of my body went completely numb. And my face all the way down my arm, all the way down my leg. And it was almost like it had fallen asleep, like that feeling when it's numb. And so I just like, without thinking, I went to stand up to kind of get the blood flowing. And I just collapsed face down on the ground. And my daughter, I mean, this is kind of the funny part of it, but my daughter, who was in first grade at the time, was in the room with me about 5 feet away, like just coloring. She was coloring a picture. And in her own oblivious little world, like did not notice anything that was happening. So I'm like face down, completely conscious, but face down on the rug in my classroom, and I cannot speak. And my body's kind of shaking a little bit. I didn't know, am I having a seizure? Am I having a stroke? Like, I'm not sure what's going on. All I knew is I was trying to say the words, get help. And it was just like a garbled noise that was coming out of my mouth. And I kept trying to repeat it and trying to repeat it. And like nothing was coming out. My son, who's 2 years older and he was in third grade at the time, comes walking in the room right at the end of this happening. And he sees me on the ground. He's like, Mom, what's going on? And I tell him, I'm like, go get help. And so he, bless his heart, he just kind of walks out of the room and he goes down the hall and he goes and finds another teacher and says, my mom needs some help. And so the two of them like casually come walking back down. She thought I needed help like with my computer or something like that. So nothing urgent. But at this point I was like hysterical. I was upright. I was standing again, but I did not know what had happened. All I knew is that something was really wrong. And so she walked me down to the nurse's office. My dad is actually a retired physician. So we called him and he's like, you need to call 911 right now. Like you need to go to the emergency room. And so they put the school on lockdown so that they could get an ambulance to take me to the emergency room. It was horrible. I was mortified and so scared. I was just completely beside myself and thinking something was just extremely wrong. So they took me to the emergency room. They did all the tests on me and everything came back normal. And it was really strange. And so they made the judgment that I had had what's called like a TIA, and it's a mini stroke. And they said, people can have one of those in their life, and it's, it's not considered anything to like be alarmed about. And I'm like, are you kidding me here? Like, but okay. And so they sent me home. And so I went home, and for the next week, I was having all of these like super weird side effects, like my hands, my feet, my like random things would go numb. And of course it would put me just into this crazy panic that it was happening again. Well, on the last day of school, it was right before the students came in, and the same thing happened again. And I got rushed back to the emergency room again. They admitted me to the hospital, did all these tests, and I mean, they found some like minor issue with my heart. I have always had chronic migraines, and so basically what they determined this to be was a hemiplegic migraine, which is a migraine that exhibits itself like a stroke. Because when I got to the hospital that day, they actually coded me as a stroke when I went in because of the symptoms that I was having. And so at this point, after all this was over, we literally were leaving a couple days later for our wedding. The doctor gave me permission to go, but I was a wreck. I mean, it was just the scariest moment of my life for sure. And I know my husband, like, he was so incredibly scared about what was going on. And this was a moment, you guys, where with coaching, I was like, I don't know, this might be too much for me. This might be too much for me to handle. And I was faced with a choice because of what was going on. And no one would have judged me for saying, like, I just can't do it. I might as well throw in the towel. But I knew that this was something big for me. Like, I knew that this is something that has the potential to change my family's life. My husband was on board and supportive with that too. And so I made the choice at this point that instead of shying away from it because of the struggles I was going through, that I was going to use the struggles to help me reach people and use the difficult things that I was going through to relate to people who are going through those same things, or maybe something along those lines. And so this was the point where I had a social media breakthrough, because that day that I was in the hospital, I actually just like took a picture of myself sitting there in the hospital, and I like typed out exactly what had happened from start to finish that day. And I shared it openly. And for someone who had only been sharing the highlight reel up until this point, it was a huge thing. But I decided to use that struggle to push me forward. And the thing about being vulnerable on social media, while it's like it's scary as hell to put yourself out there and say those things that you don't want to admit that you're thinking and that you're feeling and that you're going through, is that not only does it help other people, but it helps you so much. And if you read or listen to Brene Brown, I love her, all of her books, but she talks about the shame gremlins, and she talks about those things that make us feel ashamed, whether it's something from our childhood, or whether it's something about like our appearance, or if it's something about like trauma that we've gone through. For me, like going through divorce was something that I was super ashamed about. Like I didn't even want anyone to know that I was going through it, because I just felt like it was wrong and bad, and it wasn't what I was supposed to be going through. But she says any of those things that bring you shame, the only way to release the hold that the shame has on you is to talk about it, is to be open about it, and to be vulnerable about it. And so I started by sharing this experience, and then I started sharing about my getting married, and I started sharing about the difficult days like before Matt came into my life, when I was a single mom and when I was struggling, and when I would basically like lay in a heap on the floor just like sobbing at night. And I would share these stories, and as I share them, it's been so incredibly healing for me. It's allowed me to help other people who are going through difficult things. And I don't even care. I'm not sharing it so that they end up joining my team, but our influence with this opportunity is even bigger than just like, signing someone up for a challenge group. And I just would encourage you guys to think about those moments of vulnerability, and any time that you are starting to struggle, big, small, in between, to talk about it on social media. And if you follow Ashley, when I think about it, that's part of the reason that I'm so drawn to her, because there's no BS. Like if she's having a hard time, then she's going to talk about it. And so I've started doing that. So if I'm struggling with my nutrition plan, if I'm struggling and really unmotivated to get my workouts in, if I have like going on vacation, I came back and I was like just feeling disgusting, and I had zero motivation, like bottom of the barrel. And so I just started talking about it, and I just started sharing. And then through that, people realize that you are a real person, that they can trust you, that you're not this like robot of like working out and drinking your shake, but that you are actually real and genuine, and that they can relate to you and they can trust you and reach out to you too. So I guess that's kind of like what I wanted to touch on. I guess one of the posts recently, I guess the last thing I'll say is that one of the moments that it was like shame gremlins to the max recently was right before Matt and I were going on vacation to celebrate our first anniversary. And so I was super excited. It was like the first trip in a long time that the two of us had taken by ourselves. And so I ordered some swimsuits on Amazon, and they came in, and I put one of them on. I was like so excited to put it on, and I put it on, and I look in the mirror, and all of a sudden, all of this like criticism of my body is just pouring in, and I'm like nitpicking this and look at that and all of those things. And my instant response as a coach that preaches self-love is to feel ashamed that I'm feeling that way, embarrassed, and you better not say that out loud, because people are counting on you to show them that you are a self-love warrior. And for 24 hours, I didn't say anything about it. And then like it was a light bulb went on, and I realized like, oh my gosh, I need to talk about this. Like I need to share what I am feeling. And so I shared, realizing that I might be criticized by people, and I wasn't putting it out there for anyone to say, oh my gosh, you look great. Like, what's your problem? You know, like, yay for you. I just was wanting to be vulnerable, because I know that that's something that as women, regardless of your shape, size, anything, we all can fall into that so quickly. And so instead of allowing that to hold me back, I just decided to allow it to push me forward. So I don't know if any of that resonated with you guys. I hope that you're able to take something. If you have any, like, you guys have any like questions, comments, any of it, feel free to fire it off. But
all of it resonated with me. Oh my gosh, I feel like I needed this as much as like the girls did. I have always found you like so inspiring. But two, I think that there was so much truth in you talking about like sharing parts of your life that you like were, you know, ashamed of or felt like shouldn't be talked about. And I do think there's something just so like cathartic about just talking about it and like leaning into being vulnerable and just being open and sharing your heart. And it really does. I said this on when I was going live in the Coach Family page. It's like, it's just about this. All of this is about so much more. It's more than just us. And it's more than just, you know, about us posting our workouts. It's about, you know, impact beyond a challenge pack sale. It's about, you know, you were probably getting in like the best shape of your life, you know, especially like post-divorce, post-happy, you know, bliss and all of that. So you knew that like something was really, really wrong when you were sick. Mm-hmm. And now it's giving you a platform where you can share and be vulnerable, and other people can sit back and read your post no matter what part of their life it might relate to, and be like, you know what, it's not healthy for me to be in this kind of relationship, or it is normal for me to feel so upset when you know, my kids are with their dad for the weekend or something. Like I remember you posting about that over the holidays maybe, and it's just I love it all. It's so true.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't know, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like so fired up right now, because like, you know, even though like I knew your story and things like that, but hearing it again and the way that you shared it about, or shared how, you know, when we have struggles going on in life, no matter how big or small they are, we need to share that. We need to not, you know, think it has nothing to do with our businesses, and share it. And then, you know, even if it doesn't result in a challenge pack, that's not the thing. The thing is we have this opportunity to speak on this platform and help inspire other people, you know, who are going through the same stuff. And for me, like something I'd shared with one of my girls recently was when I opened up about, I had a really hard post I shared about not feeling like the bond with my kids when I first had them, like to where I was in tears about it. But when I posted it, I just instantly was like, oh, yeah, I feel so much better. Mm-hmm. And every post I've shared like that, where I'm like crying, typing it out, I'm like, no, someone needs to hear it. Someone needs to hear it. But I could just feel it. Like it was chipping away. Like it just felt so much better. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with you 110% that it helps. Mm-hmm. It does.
And it's hard. Like, you're exactly right. Like, it is hard to put those stories out there, you know, because those are the things that we've like held inside for, you know, sometimes like almost our whole life. And it's hard to like put that out there just to like the public and the masses for anyone to read. But you're so right. Like, it is incredibly cathartic, and it just like, when you post that, all of a sudden it's just like, it really is released from you, that shame. And so, I mean, I encourage my coaches to think about those stories that you have that maybe you haven't shared yet. And it doesn't matter whether it's related to anything Beachbody. It doesn't matter whether it's related to, you know, working out or weight or nutrition. Like, those are not the only things that have value to share, because the people out there that are your people need to hear your story, and they need to hear stories of things that are unrelated to that, whatever makes you you. And I mean, you have the ability to touch and just to truly be like an influencer in people's lives. And by whether or not they end up bringing you their 2 Success Club points or not, like, it's so much, you're exactly right, Britt. It's like so much more beyond that.
Couldn't agree more. So I do have a question about like the coaching side. So I guess maybe even going back to like your very beginning, you're definitely super resourceful, you know, and it is such a privilege that we have to have stuff like the Champions page and old team call recordings and all of that. But is there something like specific that you were doing in that week that made Ashley be like, who are you? Or, you know, like, how was your road to Diamond? What did that look like for you? Because I felt like it looked kind of different for all of us.
Mm-hmm. The thing I can say is that, like, you guys know, it took me a while to get to the point where I actually said yes to coaching. But when I said yes, I was like, you know what? I am doing this. And so I literally invited everyone, like everyone, hands down, everyone. I work in a school, so I can remember sitting at home at night, and I literally, in my mind, I'm like going around the school thinking about everyone's classroom and everyone's office. And I just was like, invite her, invite her, invite her, invite her. And I just like, I wasn't like, oh, well, I think, you know, that person's probably going to say no, or, you know, well, that person like does CrossFit, or, you know, like, oh, that person I know like would never be into anything fitness or nutrition. I was not going to say no for anyone. And I invited everyone. I invited everyone I work with. I invited like my kids' friends, moms, you know, the people that I see like at baseball games and gymnastics and stuff like that. I invited family members. I invited my friends. I basically like went through my Facebook list, and I was just like inviting everyone. I didn't even give myself a chance to stop and be scared about like individual people that I was inviting. It was just like, rip the Band-Aid off. It was just like, go, 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 go. Like, there's not enough time. Like, I've got to get to you faster. And I just was inviting as much as possible. And here's a story just to like show you how nutso I was about all of this. You know, I had gone through my like initial batch of people that I thought of to invite. And I can remember it was a Saturday, I was showering, and I'm like, who am I forgetting? Like, who else can I invite? And I was in the shower, and all of a sudden someone came into my mind, and it was my brother's ex-wife. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to draw the line there. Like, that's weird. Like, I haven't spoken to her. Like, how could I reach out to her? That would not go over well. Like, I just don't think I can. And so I went through my day, and she just kept popping back in my mind. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, seriously? And so by the afternoon, I was like, whatever. Like, what do I have to lose? You know, like, I might as well. So sent the invite, you know, like without looking, you're just gonna like send. And within minutes, I get a reply back from her. And her response was, Carrie, I cannot believe that I got this from you right now. She goes, I am sitting in my car in the parking lot of my doctor's office, bawling my eyes out because my doctor just told me that I'm borderline diabetic and that the medicine isn't working. And she's like, he told me I need to get it together. I need to change my lifestyle. I need to get healthy. I need to lose weight. And she's like, I've been sitting here feeling like I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do? I'm so overwhelmed. And she's like, and then I get this message from you. She's like, I'm all in, sign me up. And she like was like, what's the biggest challenge pack? I want that one. I want all of the things. And I think having that moment like helped me to realize the need that people have for this, you know? And I think we can get caught up like in ourselves. And I say this because I'm guilty of it, that when I'm afraid to invite someone, it's out of like a selfish place because I don't want to feel uncomfortable. You know, I don't want to make myself uncomfortable by inviting them and then maybe getting like a weird response back. But what we have for people truly is this gift that people need to receive. Like, there are women out there, there's moms out there who are struggling, who are wanting an answer, who need an answer and are waiting for someone to present it to them. And so when we come from that perspective, like, I don't feel bad inviting anyone now, you know, because if they say no to me, it's like, okay, they're not ready. But guess what? Like, a lot of those people that say no to you, and you guys probably have seen this before, if you've been in the business more than just a couple months, that those people come back around. So many of them come back around. The ones that give you the like, ha ha ha, no way, I would never do that. They come back around when they see that you stick with it and they see the results and they see the community and they like want to be a part of it. So it's just, what I can say about the beginning, Britt, to answer your question, is just that I didn't hold back. Like, I invited, because this is, I mean, it's a sales business. I mean, that's kind of like a yucky way to say it, but I mean, it's a numbers game. And so if you want to be signing people, you have to be inviting people. And my husband comes from a sales background. And so he's the one that, like, when I've gone through rough patches in the business, he's like, well, are you inviting? Like, how many people are you inviting? You need to be inviting more. Like, if you are not getting the numbers and the results that you want to have, then you need to invite more. And the book that I love is the 10X rule, that like really like was a big eye opener for me in terms of business. That's probably my like number one PD business related. I've listened to it on Audible twice because it's just so good. It fires me up every time. But if you are not like hitting the Success Club numbers that you want to hit, if you're not, you know, hitting the ranks that you want to hit, like, you got to up the number of people that you're reaching out to. And that's like what it all comes back to. Of course, there's more to it if you're using the business activity tracker, which all of my coaches, I have them use. And because that really shows you all the pieces of the puzzle. But inviting is where it's at. And your vibe when you're inviting people is the crucial part. Because if you're reaching out to invite someone and you're like, hey, so doing this thing, and it's okay if you don't want to, like, no pressure. I won't be upset if you say no. But is there any way that you might want to sign up to do this with me? You know, then people are going to be like, that sounds weird. I don't want to do it. Like, no thanks. But if you are just like pumped up and so ecstatic about what you have going on, it's just contagious and people are going to want to join whether or not they even know what you're doing.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I actually had like tears in my eyes when you were talking about when you invited your sister-in-law, or well, I guess ex-sister-in-law, because I mean, it's just like, it's so powerful. I mean, what we have, what in the world? Hold on. I'm sorry. My mom was trying to FaceTime me.
Oh, let me
Oh my gosh, how rude.
Oh,
Anyways, I'm trying to have a moment here. It's just like, it's exactly what we were talking about. It's about people's health. It's about their life. And it's not about whether it's, the solution right now for everybody, because there are going to be people that aren't ready yet, and that's fine. But what if you do send out that invite that's to the person that's crying in their doctor's parking lot because they're so afraid of what's going to happen if they don't get control,
like, shame on us from keeping this opportunity from people. Like, to look at it that way. You can't be selfish. Like, to me, you're being selfish, not inviting people, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, I don't invite every single day because it gets away from me, but like, you have to.
Yeah, like if this is something that's truly changed our lives in the way that it has, I know every single person that's on this call, it has affected our lives deeply, and we have a responsibility to share it like that.
Yeah. Yep.
I know. And then if we think about ourselves as the CEO of our own business, like, we are the boss. And when we look back at each day individually, it's like, well, if you had a boss, would your boss fire you today for the work that you didn't put in? Like, would you want to have yourself as an employee, when you look back at what you did? And there's some days where I'm like, ooh, like probably wouldn't have been doing so hot today. But the challenge is the discipline in this business and figuring out how to keep yourself disciplined. For me, like, I have a success partner just like Kayla and Brett. I think Allie came in here and talked to you guys maybe last month. And that has been huge for me for the days that I'm struggling, where I'm run down, because this business is a roller coaster. Like, there's times when you're going to be discouraged and where it's going to be hard and you feel like you're doing all the things, but you're not getting the results yet. That will come, but they don't always come right away. And having someone there to support you and to help when you go through those times is really, really helpful. But just to remember, like, it's an up and down. It's an ebb and flow. And the work that we put in today doesn't always like show itself in the results tomorrow. Sometimes the work that we put in today like shows itself next month or like in 3 months and like down the road. And that took me a while to figure out, because I felt like, well, if I hustled so hard this week and I am at Success Club 2, like, what the heck? But then, like, weeks later, those people that I planted a seed with, they're coming back around. Like, people take time. So it's not like always just instant gratification in this business.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more. There's a little one this here.
Do you guys have any questions for Carrie? Or comments?
Fire away.
Takeaways?
I love what Shelby said about, I think this was when she was talking about your ex-sister-in-law, that they call it like a God stop in their house. Like, God is like, hey, like, if you're listening to me, I'm going to interject myself here.
For sure.
I'm going to get in your face about it, but.
Mm-hmm. True. For sure. You're, so is it Miriam? Your babies are so cute. Oh my gosh. It's twins?
No, she's got one little girl right there.
Did I not see another?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a 3-month-old and a 15-month-old, so they're a year apart.
Oh, okay, maybe like depth perception, like they both looked little, and I was like just enamored with them.
They are little. They are little for sure.
So cute.
But yeah, Dad's at school right now, so Mom's on.
Gosh, super mom. Good for you.
Yep.
Look at you, still showing up and making it happen. Like, no excuses right there. I love it.
Always. Thank you so much for your story and just all your like experiences. Like, I have taken so much from everything you have said. Just like, I don't know, you just lit a fire in me for the rest of this week. So thank you so much.
I'm so glad.
Miriam will be at Summit as well. She's flying in from Utah, so yeah, we all get to meet for the first time.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, and I wanted to say I really appreciate you talking about how you share like your struggles. Like I think I do okay like with sharing like my day to day, but I don't know, I kind of look at it as like if I'm sharing something I'm struggling with, I almost try to be funny about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes it's not funny, you know. Like if you're, you know, having a bad day with your kids or whatever. Or like I struggle with like anxiety and depression, and I can very easily talk about that one-to-one with somebody, but that's very vulnerable to put out like on social media. Brittany does a very good job about it with sharing those things. I think that's the area that I could maybe improve and, you know, just maybe connect with some people who maybe have the same kind of struggles. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, for sure. And it, you know, it can start just like in little bits and pieces, I think is an easy way to the easier maybe way to get started is just like little bits and pieces. And as you do it, then you become more comfortable because you will get an outpouring of people who needed to hear it. The first time that I shared on Instagram something about my divorce, it was like an outpouring of like DMs from women who are like, I needed to hear that, I'm going through it. Like, I feel like I have no hope. Like, it helps me so much to know that other people are going through it because it's just natural. Like, we don't want to talk about the hard things. Like, people don't want to put that out there. It's much easier to put out the highlight reel. And so to see that, you know, there's other people that are struggling with it and are still coming out stronger on the other side, then there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
You are so one of my favorite people.
For real.
Oh my gosh. I'm just like sitting here and just I have like all the notes.
1 week. Yay.
Where are you and Allie gonna actually be? Because last time we talked to Allie.
I'm gonna stop the recording. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.